All right, let me.
How's it going?
It's going good. Hang on. Let me.
I just got back from my run and I thought I'd
Oh,
have
good
time
for you.
to like not be sweaty, but like I'm just gonna be sweaty.
That's okay. It is
Well,
what it is.
it is what it is, and like my glasses are fogging up too. But I'm gonna let me drink some of my
Sure.
protein water and collagen and yeah, trying to be
Hmm.
healthy. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
gonna
know
have a
how well
sip
it's
of water
working,
too.
but
Simultaneous sips.
exactly. So, I
Yeah.
got the extension, so I'm in the spot again. So
Oh,
hopefully,
good. I hope it works.
yeah, it's
Okay.
plugged in above me, so I'm
Okay.
assuming that that's gonna work out okay. And I did do um a Zoom yesterday for the Rowing on the Square podcast,
Mhm.
and I've been trying to focus on people who have had surgeries or injuries
Mhm.
and interviewing them and kind of like learning about their journey. So if people are interested in that, go check out the Rowan
Oh,
Square podcast. Yeah, but I've been talking to like, I don't know, I've been DMing just like people on Instagram because a lot of times people post like their like injury journey on there. So um
oh,
I've DM'd people. I'm like, I'm a real person. I am not a bot. Here's my email address. I really
good for
want to like
you,
really
Adrian.
I'm like, I want to talk to you. So yeah, there were some really nice people who've been just like, instant rowing friends. So I was like, well, now that
Aw,
I've talked to them on my podcast, I'm like, well, I'll have to bring them on to rowing friends now because they're like my rowing friends.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, my glasses are really I
Oh
don't know if you
man.
remember that when we would row, I was one of those people who like the steam would come off of their head in the morning.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm that person.
Yeah, I have to say I don't miss wearing glasses.
Yeah, I've always like, well, I didn't wear glasses up until like all the time until college. And I
Oh wow.
remember like leaving the chemistry lecture and going out the back, and I had my glasses on still. And I was like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I am totally missing out on everything. I'm like,
Yes.
glasses from that moment on, I've worn my glasses all the time. Because I used to
Yeah. No,
only use them to drive. And then if I was like sitting in class, like you know how those lecture halls were huge. They were like
yeah.
500-person lecture halls. So if you ended up in the back, you were pretty far
Mhm.
away from it wasn't it was it a chalkboard? Maybe it was a whiteboard, maybe it was a
It
like
was probably an overhead projector
overhead
that, yeah,
projector.
those things you would write on. Yep.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I same thing. I think a lot of people that have glasses, I know Hannah had the same reaction when she got her first pair. God, I must have been in middle school. Hannah was young, like probably second grade or something like that. And the same
Mhm.
thing, the first time you see the world, you could see all the leaves on the trees. It's like so amazing. But
It's
it's
hard
as a
to me the
parent,
whole time.
as a person experiencing it, it's amazing. But as a parent, you're like, oh my God, like I can't believe I let it to get
I
to
let
this
yeah, I
point. I
let you get to
didn't
the point where you
realize
like
it.
couldn't see the world anymore.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you have a bunch of news for us,
I
right? So
I do.
start at the
Yes.
very beginning. You got the
Yeah.
email, and then what happened next?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So everybody listening, I purposely have given Adrian zero information. Not on purpose, but I guess on purpose because now she's learning it for the first time. It'll be exciting. But just because it's been crazy. Saturday was states for the colleges in New York State, and then Sunday was Easter, and busy day for sure. And then school started back up on yesterday. Um, so yeah, well, first it starts with you because you got the email for the
Yep.
coach.
Yep. I
Yep,
talked
for
to
Andrew.
Ben from West Side,
Hmm.
and he was the one who I got all these ergs from. I'm pointing to him because all
Hmm.
the erg rails are sitting to my right, out of frame. You should see my basement. It looks like a erg warehouse. But that's besides the point. But he was like, "Oh, well, I know the coach from UB. I'll give you his email address." And so that was like in January. And
Hmm.
so then, like, I try to be very organized and I write in my planner, even though some weeks I carry a bunch of stuff over. I was like, reach back out to Ben. You didn't get the email address. So, like, a week ago, I reached out to Ben. I was like, I didn't get the email address. So, just wanted, I wanted to put this back on the top of your feed. He's like, oh my gosh, you're totally sorry. He gave me the email address. And as soon as I got that email address, I
Hmm.
wrote Kate and we were like, okay, let's do this. So,
Yeah.
take it from there.
Yes. So yeah, so I reached out to Andrew, and then it took a while. So he's probably very busy with preparing for state. So this is Andrew Witz. He's the coach for the University of Buffalo club team for now. As far as I know, he's the head coach. I guess that's his term for the whole thing, for girls and for, well, for women and for men.
Mhm.
Um, and then he did write back, I want to say the day before state. So I think it was Friday. Maybe it was Saturday morning. I can't even remember. And then he gave us his contact info, his cell phone. And so I was like, I had a lot to do on Saturday, but I was, I could do a lot of that in Saratoga because it was just like shopping, that sort of thing, preparing for Easter Sunday.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay, well that works out well. I can go up, stop by. I mean, literally it's 20 minutes from my house. And I was I always, love watching rowing anyway. So I was like, okay, I'll go up there. Um, so then I get up there and I park. And if you've been to Fish Creek for any regatta, parking is such a crazy thing. But anyway, I do my normal parking spot, which I always park at the top of the hill off to the right. Forgetting the name of the street. It's a blank right now. But you get to the light, turn right, and then I found a perfect spot right there. Park, start heading down the hill. I should have realized that there was something odd when I was literally the only person walking down the hill. Everybody's walking up the hill. I see actually Hannah's coach. I saw him. He
Mhm.
saw me first. He was like, hey, Kate. His daughter rows for Iona.
Oh, okay.
So he was probably there watching her. And yeah, I didn't see anyone else I knew, but just kept seeing people walking up the hill and it starts to lightly drizzle. So then walking around a little bit, I figure I would wait for his text because I had texted him, telling him I was going to be there. I parked, waiting for the text, but also just kind of like I'll probably find him. It's not that much, I just
Mhm.
walk around a little bit. So I was walking around trying to not be in the way, just doing like a peripheral walk. Um, and actually, what I was looking for is I'm pretty sure for the high school states, or maybe I'm just thinking of fish. I always get it. We go to so many races up there, but they usually have a tent. They have the merchandise tents, but then they usually have a tent that's kind of like set up just for spectators. So they'll have chairs in there. They'll have a huge, big screen TV. So it's kind of a nice place. If it's cold, if it's rainy, like you can get out of the elements and watch some of the races because you really can't see them that well from anywhere on land. So was looking for that to just kind of scope things out, and they didn't have that. They literally only had a merchandise tent and maybe one food truck and an ice cream truck or ice cream cart thing. So then, I'm looking at the trailers. I did the last one at the end was West Side, and I was like, well, this is probably where they're going to be.
Mhm.
So then I make my lap around. By now it's like pouring, literally pouring.
Oh,
And of course, Chris
oh.
said to me, you should bring your umbrella. I'm like, I don't really want to bring an umbrella. Should have brought the umbrella. Should have
Mhm.
brought more rain gear. I had my raincoat and a hat, but should have brought
Mhm.
more because it was pouring. And so then I get the text from Andrew saying, yeah, it's literally pouring. So if you want to wait in your car until it passes, I'm like, yeah, it's a little
Oh.
late for that. But then he told me where they were. So I did miss them the first time around only because I should have realized they don't have like a Buffalo tent. They just
Mhm.
had like a Coleman tent. And I think it was one of the be either local or maybe they just brought it with them, had brought it for the team to stay under, which was very nice of them because they needed it. It was, like
Yeah.
I said, pouring. And I think later on it got really. almost hot and sunny.
Oh,
So they probably used it to get out of the
out of
sun
the sun.
too.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so then I got his text. By then I had already left that area and I was watching some of the races and I brought my new binoculars. So I was testing those out. Yeah, very excited. Um, and I think I caught the end of the women's double race and then I think it was the 3v8, the women's 3v8 race. So that was kind of cool. And I could see the binoculars worked out really well. So that was cool. The doubles, wow, there's a huge difference in finish times with that race. So
Oh well.
yeah, some really fast ones and someone that took a little that took their time, which is, it's
Yep.
good. You're out there, you're doing it.
You're learning. That's the fun of it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, and I think some of those are probably just really small teams, right? Like they just are starting out and they got, maybe two people that can get out there. So eventually I saw his text, walked back over, and then just asked whoever was there if Andrew was there, and then we were just chatting. He came out in the rain and was chatting with me. So I met Andrew. I met so Dan, who is coaching there. Dan's father actually rows with me at Burnt Hills.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he is a Burnt Hills Masters rower. And Dan also, he went to RIT. He went to, sorry, I should say, he went to Shenendehowa as a high schooler. That's where my kids go. And then he went to RIT.
Mhm.
And then I think he just ended up in Buffalo. And when the year that my four went to the head of the Charles, so
Mhm.
there was a women's four and a men's four
Mhm.
and he was the men's for coxswain. So I had recognized him. I was like,
Mhm.
I know you.
Aw.
Um, yeah, so it was kind of fun, kind of catching up and getting to know Andrew, and then Lily, who is was there. She is a West Side juniors rower, like a juniors, sorry, not a juniors rower, a juniors coach.
Okay.
So she was there, I think she just supporting on behalf of West Side because it does sound like they're very much connected with West Side right now.
Okay.
But it sounds like I'm sure we can learn more from him because he's definitely happy to come on. So we'll have to arrange that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's working pretty well in terms of the arrangement that they have. So West Side, like I think everything you guessed sounds pretty accurate, that West
Yeah.
Side's kind of overseeing it and taking on the insurance and the coaching aspects of the team. And then they're using, and it definitely sounds like West Side kind of gains the use of Veterans Park in the Tonawanda Creek when the Black Rock I guess they really had a lot of ice on there this year. So it prevented a lot of the Buffalo teams from getting a lot of water time. So teams like Canisius University and well, Buffalo, I assume
Mhm.
everybody else is using that too. So that, yeah, so it was really interesting to just catch up, get to know him and the other coaches. Didn't really get a chance to get to know the team at all, but they looked like they were having a great time
Aw.
and, getting that great team, bonding experience in between races. So so they had two men's boats that were competing, but I think there were definitely, I think some women, maybe it was just the coxswain, but um, there are women on the team that are rowing. They just didn't get anything organized in time to race.
Yeah.
Um, but it sounds like, the beginnings of, something good. So I'm excited. It's like
Aw.
happening. We're
I
here. It's happening.
know. Yay. That's so
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm glad that it's back
Yeah.
and I'm glad that they have a home, they have
Hmm.
somewhere to
Yep.
row out of and I'm glad that West Side is helping them out and
Hmm.
kind of like, it's kind of like back to square one, like way back
Yep.
when, like UB was rowing out of West Side. So
Hmm.
it's kind of come full circle. So
Yeah.
and that's good that Tonawanda space is being able to be used by
Hmm.
other teams too, so people can get the water time. I mean, that's what happens here. We have teams that are on the canal, and the canal won't be open for another week or two, so they're
Hmm.
down at the river, and
Hmm.
it's an inconvenience to have to bring your boat somewhere and kind of have to row out of somewhere where you don't usually row, but you're thankful for the water time. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I don't think I ever realized that until you mentioned that. And then, with this, trying to figure out what's going on with UB, I don't remember dealing with that much when we were on the team.
I remember
So,
when
yeah.
we were at West Side, I remember the ice boon. Like it was a big
Yeah.
deal when they removed it because like you could go out and row when the boon was in, and then
Hmm.
like I don't even like we'll have to look up the mechanics of what this actually is, but like when they remove it, it
Hmm.
stops blocking the ice and the ice flows into the
It
channel. So
flows.
then
Yeah.
it flows into that canal and then it just basically gets
Hmm.
stuck there. Like
Hmm.
unless it's really hot and it melts really fast, it's just
Yeah.
there. And so the
Hmm.
weather can be nice but you can't go out and row because there's just the ice is like bound up against each other. Like it's really weird. So yeah, I don't know.
So on the week that we posted that podcast where we were talking about it, I did post a video about it. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it was interesting to learn about it. But honestly, Adrian, I don't remember it, but maybe it's because I only rode out of Westside that first year, and maybe it was just a good year where it didn't freeze that much, or it just warmed up really quickly.
But I
Because
might be
yeah.
remembering it too because I coached at Narden for a couple
Oh,
of
that's
years.
true.
So
Yep.
maybe like my knowledge of that is more
Hmm.
that than it was
Hmm.
when we were rowing out there in college.
Could
So
be. Yeah.
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 Hmm.
But I mean, yeah, I just feel kind of extra lucky that where we are, we don't, I mean, we have to deal with the typical, it's too windy, it's too many white caps, the water's too fast, but we don't have any of those other constraints where we are because the the buoys might not even be in or they might be taken out, but we can still row,
Hmm.
it just have to get our docks in. So
Yeah, I love when the buoys aren't in there. I'm like, it's so much
yeah.
nicer. They put in like just like the regular green and red ones
Hmm.
in the river, and they tend to shift. And one of the green ones that they put in is very
Hmm.
close to the launching area. So if you
Oh
aren't
no.
careful, you like bring your boat out and there's like all of a sudden there's like this big green buoy. Like as I'm bowing the double, I'm always like, oh, there it is. Like I've never hit it, knock on wood, but like
Uh-huh.
the buoys can, especially like if they just all of a sudden show up and to a rower, it's
Hmm.
kind of like all of a sudden because you don't get an email or nobody tells you that it's going to be there. And then all of a sudden you come out and there's all these buoys in the river. You're like, ugh.
Oh, I know. Oh, and I noticed that so where Hannah's team and my team row, so there's a bunch of different bridges, obviously, and then you have those as your landmarks and everything. So there's one bridge that is what we call the 10 arch bridge. So there's literally, I guess if you counted 10 places, but you
Yeah.
only row through maybe four of them.
Mhm.
But there was a tree that was just, kind of embedded in the ground underneath, and it was just sticking up out in the middle of one of those arches for pretty much the whole season last year. And we have a couple races, so it definitely impacts like you can't go through that arch, which is like in the middle, so it definitely makes it a little more challenging. Although I remember I was kind of like one of the safety boats in one of the races, and there was a small little place where you could fit around it. And we would have some crews that would do that and try and get
Yeah.
around it. But anyway, that tree seems to, maybe it's a different tree, but it seems to be now there's a different one or the same one that's between the two bridges, literally in the most narrow section. And it's right in the middle with two branches just sticking out into the air, right in the middle of the channel. And I can see it like when I cross over the bridge, the one
Mhm.
because there's a railroad bridge and then there's the Freeman's Bridge, which is the one you can drive over, and you can see it. And every time I see it, I'm like, oh, this be such a pain,
Yeah.
especially with so many junior rowers bow steering. And
Yeah.
anytime they bow steer, usually that means there's multiple boats bow steering at the same time and trying not to hit each other and still go, in one direction. I just can't imagine it's got to be a pain in the neck.
We always have like a crew of dads who know how to drive the outboards who'll get out there and like
Hmm.
bring ropes and like spend an afternoon pulling trees and moving things around and I mean it's such a dangerous endeavor to do
Hmm.
that like and the dads and the, and the older rowers who know how to do that, like feel comfortable doing that. But when you don't have those people out there to do it, like that stuff has to sit. You have to put one of those little, you have to wrap it with tape or
Hmm.
something like that. Everybody has to know that it's there. I mean, it really,
Yeah.
I mean, it's dangerous to try to remove them if you're not smart about it, but yeah, these kids will run right into them, run right over
Yeah.
them. I mean, when we were at the head of the Genesee, the college rowers, there's a rower who rowed his single right up onto a tree.
Oh.
There's like a whole bunch of trees that kind of are off, like there's that pedestrian bridge, and
Hmm.
off to the side of the pedestrian bridge were just a bunch of trees. There were so many trees that like nobody could go out there and clear anything off. And there was just like one that was kind of hanging out, and he took the turn a little shallow and like ended up
Oh,
up on a
geez.
tree, like literally up on the tree to the point where he could climb on the tree and had to push his boat off back into the water. Like it was yeah, and he was almost at the finish line too. At that point,
Oh.
he had rowed like 4,900 meters, and the head of the
Oh.
Genesee is like 5K exactly. So it's
Oh,
like
geez.
we felt so bad for him because I mean it's like the
Yeah.
end of the race. I mean, I guess he could have swam himself across, but swam the boat and himself across. But
Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's tough. Debris is tough, especially this
Hmm.
time of year. But I mean, really any time of the year that like we get a big rain, it'll pull
Yeah.
the stuff off the shores, and then you got stuff floating in there. And then the canal's always got a little something floating around in there. More like the kind of, when you're rowing and you hit like a log like this size, it's like floating. You can't see it. You hit it and it's like that
Yep.
boink, like where
Yeah.
you hit the bow, and then you're just hoping that like if you take a hard port or hard starboard enough during that stroke that you kind of don't let it hit the fin as you go by.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's like the canal debris. It's always like kind of
Okay.
small,
Hmm.
floating, like even with the surface, you can't see it, and
Yeah.
then you doink it when you go through. But yeah, you know what I mean? That sound that it
Oh,
makes.
well, it's definitely we've had what we call speed bumps. It's like you can't describe it any better than that. Like,
Hmm.
where you hit it and it's not just you hear it and you feel it, but you actually like go up in you're like, oh, that's not good.
Or like, oh, that one
Or
might be an issue. And then you're checking the boat when you finish. It's like one of those things where
yeah.
you're cleaning the boat and you're like putting your hand over the bow. You're like, is there a dent in here now from that? Or
Yeah.
but what were
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
results for on
Yeah.
Uni? How'd they do?
So yeah, they did. So I think so the novice four. So there's a men's novice four and a men's, I think just a quad. I don't think it was labeled as novice or anything. So they got second. So that's very exciting in the novice four.
Nice.
And then I think the quad. Maybe there's only two, but I think they got second as well. Yeah, which is amazing. I mean, this is
Uh,
like their first time back, and look at them, that's great. Yeah, actually, I was for SUNY overall, I think it was pretty good showing. I mean, there was SUNY Albany, so they have a brand new team for the women.
mhm.
And I think they're four, I want to say got third. That was like a varsity four, I think. And then they had a novice eight. I don't remember how they did, but it was just good to see some SUNY representation. Can't remember what other SUNY schools. We had looked at that before, but I'm already blanking at it. But yeah, go UB. I'm so excited for them. And it
Yay.
sounds like, well, you had asked him about the Genesee, so I don't know. When I talked to him about what other races, it sounds like it's a lot of it's up in the air. Like they're just trying to get through this season and get
Mhm.
through, there's a lot going on when you start a team up again. So it sounds like I think they're done maybe for this season, other than they might do some local scrimmages to end the season off. And then, I said, if you guys do come for the fish, let me know because then we can definitely get something organized to kind of support the team. I mean, I would be there anyway.
Yeah.
Hannah most likely will be racing, Keegan racing. So, yeah, we've got some local rowers, we've got some coaches that might be there that are former alum. So, I'm sure we could put something together to help support them,
Yeah.
which is just so important. I
Mhm.
don't think, it seemed kind of to take him aback, or maybe it's just something he hadn't considered that, there might be people that at the alumni. It's almost like I
Yeah.
was asking him for something, and he's like,
Mhm.
well, it's a lot, there's a lot going on. I'm like, yeah, that's the point, like,
Yeah.
what can we do to help, right? It's
Oh
not
yeah.
not asking you to do another thing or add something to your list. We want to
Or
help
take the
lighten the
load.
load.
Yeah, lighten the
Yeah.
load. I mean, there's definitely, because there's not only people who are alumni, but there's people who are still in rowing.
Hmm.
So like I really think that what's important is that for him to know that they have resources. Because I always,
Hmm.
I always think about like when I was a head coach and I felt like I was on the island and I don't and it's horrible for me to say that because you're not.
Hmm.
And but you have to reach out to those other coaches. You have to use your other resources and just lean into people,
Hmm.
whether it's for like equipment repair or it's how are we going to handle all these things for the regatta? Like how are we going to get there, get things done, logistics? Like logistics are easy for someone else to take care of.
Hmm.
As a head coach, you think, oh, it's just going to be, I'm going to make lineups, I'm going to put the boats on the trailer, and I'm going to get the people there. But there's all that stuff about like where do spectators park? Where do like how did
Hmm.
how where are your kids gonna stay? Like if it's raining, if it's too sunny, like are we gonna have a tent? Like as a head coach, like those are the headache items
Hmm.
of your existence. And
Yeah.
having like I mean because there's so many alumni. I
Hmm.
mean they had 20 years of D1. I
Hmm.
mean, think of the number of women who are out there who've rode for UB. I mean, that's a
Right.
lot of people.
Yep.
And like I just want them to know that they're not alone and that they're
Hmm.
not on this island and that whatever they needed.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
between just between I mean, we got Matt out down in Pittsburgh, we got
Hmm.
Dave out in Buffalo in
Syracuse.
Syracuse. I'm in
Yeah.
Rochester, you're in Albany. I mean,
Hmm.
pretty much all the places that UB would go.
Hmm.
You got someone who's still
Yeah.
in the
Wendy
rowing
and
team.
Jim are in
Wendy,
Philly.
Wendy and Jim are
Yeah.
still in Philly. I mean, like, so
Yeah.
basically anywhere he goes, like
Hmm.
he could have whatever they wanted, whether it be a food
Yeah.
tent, whether it be boats to row. Do you need
Hmm.
oars for that? Like, are you not bringing your stuff? Like, I mean,
Hmm.
you don't have to they don't have to start from scratch is
Yeah.
I think the biggest part of that. So yeah, I just want to make sure that they're aware of that because I mean that can make things so much easier. Like
Hmm.
if you just didn't have to worry about the food tent and if he called me up about the hog, I can tell him where to park the cars. Like, like just don't even worry about it. Like, I'll tell you where you can go. Like, or you
Yeah.
need a place to stay. I mean, like they could crash in my house. I mean, like that kind of thing. So it's just you want to make sure that, and we want to also be involved too. We
Yeah.
still love rowing, and
Hmm.
UB's our place. So
Yeah. Yeah, and you want to see other rowers, other student athletes have a good experience and not be sidetracked with like, a lot of stresses of the stuff that they don't need to be stressed about,
yeah,
just so they can enjoy it and, realize that someday, this is when they're doing it, this is the time that they're on the team, but it can also be part of your life forever, I was talking to my sister-in-law at Easter, and she said the same thing about how, she was a runner. She was a cross-country runner at high school and in college, and it's her teammates, not the people she was in classes with, that so much that she really stayed connected with afterwards. And
hmm
I think that that can be so true. Of course, like you don't have to be an athlete to have, those kind of lasting college relationships, but I think, when you spend that much time with people and, blood, sweat, and tears are involved,
yeah,
you can't help but bond with people, and
yeah,
different kinds of people too, right? Like,
hmm
people from different backgrounds, people from
yeah,
that, look at the world differently, whatever it is, like, but you can have rowing in common.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited for
Yeah.
Buffalo. I'm excited that like things are moving along for them. And did they say how many kids are on the team?
Yeah, it didn't ask that. So we'll have to get the all the deets from Andrew when we have him on. Because I would imagine not everyone was there if he said there was, women that were rowing because they didn't have, any races, so maybe they didn't come out for that. But I also think easily, like we heard from Wendy, she had
hmm
100 people show up, when they put the call out. And it's not a surprise, right? It's such a
Yeah.
huge university that, easily you could have a bunch of people as
Hmm.
walk-ons, and then you just have to figure out how to manage that.
How to
It's its
manage
own
all that. That
its
becomes a
own
problem under,
challenge.
yeah. Because I mean, just like having so many people to kind of sift through
Hmm.
is tough. I mean, like the limiting factor, of course, the early mornings, like
Hmm.
depending on when you have your sign up meeting, like, all these people probably sign up and probably half of them actually show up to that first practice. And then that half of people who show up to the first practice,
Hmm.
maybe half of them really don't like rowing. You know what I mean? They
Hmm.
really kind of get into it and they're like, this is not for me. So then you have, 25 people, but even at those type of numbers, 25, 30, 35 people, I mean, it's hard to as one or two or three coaches. I mean, that's still
Yeah.
a
Hmm.
monstrous amount of people. And then you wonder how many of them have rowing experience too. I
Hmm.
mean, the ones who have the rowing experience kind of help you out because you can
Hmm.
actually get some boats out. But if nobody has experience, you're trying to send that novice aide out and trying to teach them something.
Yeah.
It can be a challenge. It really
Hmm.
can. So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Hmm.
we'll
But
be
he said,
yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
he did say that right now they're pretty good with equipment because they still have a lot of the equipment that was there and they're using it. And I guess the Student Association has been very helpful and supportive so far. So I think maybe whatever the issues were, having West Side as part of it is definitely kind of
Helping.
helping with that. So hopefully, yeah,
So they're using
hopefully,
all the equipment that was left
yeah, as
from
far as I
from the
know,
D1
yeah,
team.
yeah, I
Oh,
think
oh,
so.
well, that's good. I mean, because
Yeah,
the team was at 2017 or 2018 that they
2017.
2017.
Um,
So the boats,
yeah.
I mean, anything that was relatively new.
Yeah.
I mean, all that stuff probably sat for so long
He
because of that.
said that a lot of the boats they're rowing, the age of the boats, like if they were going to try and sell them back, whenever, I don't know, whatever. He was saying, if they were going to try and sell them, the age of the boats would have kept people away, but they haven't been used. So, and if they've been out of the elements, like generally speaking, they're still in good shape. So,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean boats last forever. I mean, I have that
Yeah.
1981 Pinert. So
Yeah.
yeah, they can handle a little bit of age, and like you said, if they haven't been used,
Hmm.
then they're probably in decent shape, you know.
Yeah. Hmm.
It makes me think of, those things on the internet that or like ghost towns, things that are
Yeah.
abandoned. Like I could just imagine like walking in the boathouse after all that time with, like
Hmm.
the oars still in the racks and
Hmm.
the riggers still on the boats and like, like equipment on the repair shelf and,
Hmm.
seats sitting somewhere and, people like because they just all probably, I mean, they probably didn't clean out and do anything. They probably just stopped using it. And so it's
Yeah.
probably been in like this stasis basically for so
Yeah.
long. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, it will be exciting to hear more from him,
Hmm.
and see what happens with the team. But it's really, yeah, yay! I'm so
Yay.
excited.
I know. Is that weird? We're like, yeah,
Yeah,
we're so excited. We're like,
we're so
"What?" I know, but
excited.
I mean, it's just cool. It's cool that
Yeah.
it's back. And,
Hmm.
it meant so much to us. Like it's
Hmm.
exciting that it'll mean so much to other people. Because I mean, a lot of people row in Buffalo, like, and
Yeah.
it should be a part of what UB can offer
Hmm.
too, because it is such a big school. But
Yeah. Well, so we have our update for Buffalo, huge update. So I think we should definitely start doing a little more investigating because I have some parents that have juniors that are looking for places for their kids, and a lot of them want some SUNY schools on that list. So I know you found out about Oswego.
mhm.
So yeah, we should start like adding to this so we can get an update on the status of all the SUNYs and what
Oh
they're
yeah, that's
doing.
right. Yeah, maybe
Yeah,
I should. I have the contact thing for the Oswego. Maybe I should reach out to them, and be like, hey,
sure.
see
Yeah.
what their program's all about. Maybe we can have some of those SUNY schools come on. And I know that you had said that there's a D1 at Albany now, right? You said
Yep.
that for the women.
Hmm.
And then Oswego is a club team, UB's a
Hmm.
club team.
Everything's
Binghamton
club except for Albany
is
at this point.
okay. Binghamton has a team, right?
Yeah.
So,
So Binghamton, yep. So Binghamton's always been club.
Okay.
But I think they had a pretty good, so they had, same thing as Buffalo before it went to D1, especially on the men's side. They had some just like die-hard coaches that were involved in rowing for years and just kept that program alive and thriving for so many years. Because that's where Dan went. And I know he's told me that. And then it was definitely COVID that killed that continuity. And
Mhm.
just, I think that coach that was there for years, I think he retired and moved south. So, yeah, so it really, a lot of those programs are on the backs of very dedicated volunteers almost, or,
Yeah.
minimally paid people. Um, but yeah, I think they were a pretty thriving and big team, and it seems like they are again. So I think Binghamton was definitely there. I just didn't pay attention to which races they were in, but I'm pretty sure that they had a pretty good presence there at the States. But I mean, at one point, I think when you were on the team, but I definitely remember it. Maybe it was my senior year. I mean, there was a SUNY champs. Like there was enough teams to get
Yeah.
together and
Mhm.
race. And I
Yep.
know we kind of felt like, well, it's not really fair. I think we felt like the other teams probably thought, well, it's not fair. Buffalo's here. You're the only ones that are D1. But,
Mhm.
you
Yep.
know, at this point, it would be good to see some more SUNY schools. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think Buff State. So
I was about to
somebody was
ask about that.
asking me,
Yeah.
yeah, they were confused on when I used the term SUNY Buffalo, which maybe that's an outdated way of referring to the school that we went to.
Yeah.
But I do say that. I'll say SUNY
Yeah.
Buffalo. But I can see where that would be really confusing
Confusing. Yeah.
because of Buff State. So, but yeah, they actually do, I think, have a team. I found a
Okay.
website and I think they're listed at the Left Buffalo Scholastic, maybe, or maybe it is at West Side as one of the teams that rose
Oh,
out of there.
yeah.
So, yeah, so we'll have to
I
find out
hear
the
like
updates
we'll
of
have
all of
to
them.
ask Andrew about the Buffalo rowing community and like what the status of it is right now. I think well, of course, there's West Side and there's like
Mhm.
Buffalo Scholastic. I believe there's like some branching off that's happening right now. You know how rowing communities can get sometimes where we
Yeah.
where we get angry at each other, and so we pick up our
Mhm.
oars and we're going somewhere else. So I think that
Mhm.
might be some of what's going on in Buffalo right now. But
Okay.
but I know that so UB's rowing out of Tonawanda Creek. Buff State must be at West Side, or you said they're at Buffalo Scholastic
It's one of the
um
two. I
on the
remember
Buffalo
looking at
River.
it. Yeah.
Canisius is out of West Side, but they were using
They have
Tonawanda Creek, and Canisius is Division 1.
yes,
Yeah.
Canisius is Division 1, and they actually, I think, are the only team that rose out of the Fontana, but I could be wrong. They
Okay.
definitely use the Fontana boathouse, so maybe
Mhm.
it's mostly where their boats are stored. And then maybe, I don't know, like maybe we could have Matt. So I met Matt. He's the head coach of Canisius.
Okay.
Hannah did a visit there over the summer. So, and I saw him there at the States too. So I talked to him for a little bit too.
Oh,
But I think, I think that's right. But maybe West Side uses that space too, because I think he'll be coaching one of the teams for West Side in the summertime, probably the women's U23
okay.
would be my guess.
And does Duval have a team anymore?
Yeah, so I think so because I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's where the former Canisius college coach went to work. It was probably college at the time, so they just changed from college to university. But I think Carrie Ann Bryce went over to Duville, but I don't think she's coaching there. I
Okay.
think she's like a higher position now.
Okay.
Because I remember when I originally reached out. To Canisius to try to arrange the visit for Hannah, it was like right during when she was leaving. So I think I had like emailed her and then got like a bounce back message.
Okay.
But yeah, so and I think Hannah even got an email from them. But
Okay.
so yeah, so I think Duvall. I think it's a new, might even be Division 2.
Hmm.
But yeah, so there's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of options. I mean, Buffalo's a great place if someone's listening and trying to send their kids somewhere. Buffalo's a great place to go. Lots of rowing, lots of different
Hmm.
teams, lots of community teams, opportunities for summer.
Yep.
And then like, of course, I always think of like the Canadian connection too,
Yeah.
like being able to kind of like Wendy was talking about that, being able to kind of to go to Canada, know those coaches, know that community too, and kind of go back and forth, especially like during the summer if you just don't want to be at West Side, but you want to do some rowing, like Canada's like an option right there, getting up to St. Catharines and being a part of what's going on up there too. So yeah, I think on some future podcasts we should try to explore this more and talk to all of these different coaches and kind of figure out what the status of their, their rowing communities are, especially from that angle of like kind of like your college advising and
Hmm.
I treat a bunch of kids, so at times they ask me about like what's this process all about and what are the options. And I think a lot of times when people think about like doing any athletic sport in college, they think of like Division 1, they think of the that full on commitment, they feel they think about waking up early, having second workouts, working out 6 days a week, always traveling every weekend. And so like it's not always like that, depending on what type of team that you pick. And I know a lot of these club teams, I almost what I tell my athletes when I talk to my high schoolers that I'm treating, I always say like if you're more of like kind of like the student government style kind of kid and like, but you row, like a club team could be a great space for you because, they have a president, a vice president, a secretary, and a treasurer. There's a lot more
Hmm.
logistical and admin things on the back end that involve rowing that would be kind of fun for someone like, who enjoys rowing, but's not into the idea of going D1 and practicing 2 times a day and trying to more about building community
Hmm.
and creating a season that people could enjoy and being competitive without necessarily taking it over the top.
Hmm.
So yeah, that'd be great to kind of talk to all these different coaches and kind of get their
Yeah.
opinions and
Hmm.
what type of rowing communities they're trying to build. And
Yeah.
I think that would be a really fun way to get some people on the podcast. We'll have to work on
I
that.
love I love one of your recent reels that you had that sometimes as rowers we take it so seriously and sometimes, it's okay to just have fun doing it. And I think even as a college rower that can be true, right?
Mhm.
Like if you
Yeah.
find the right program,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be the fast it's the same thing for colleges too. Like even if you're not an athlete, it doesn't have to be about getting into the most prestigious competitive college that you can get into,
Yeah.
if that's not a position that is going to serve you well to always be at the bottom fighting your way up, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's a point to that, right? Like find a place where you feel the best, like find a place that you feel like is a good place for you, um, and don't worry so much about, the,
The
the name
prestige of
brand and the
the name brand.
prestige.
Because that's just it's just
Yeah.
a brand. I mean, it's just a
Yeah.
ability to put a label on your
Hmm.
LinkedIn. I went to this college, but I mean,
Yeah,
what if it doesn't provide you with an experience that's life enriching? Like, what's the point? Because it's really,
exactly.
because that's really the point of college is to
Hmm.
spend that time growing, to spend that time like learning about yourself, learning about other people, have some like really exciting life experiences. I mean, that's why I love rowing so much is that it's just like and everybody who has a sport that they love says, "Oh, this,
Hmm.
it's the microcosm of life." But like, learning about having a goal and then working towards that goal, the camaraderie, the teamwork, putting that all together and then being able to to go out there and take the journey and get to the destination and do the thing. I think that's you know what it's all about. So yeah.
Yeah. So I did find on the West Side website that so they list the colleges that they're affiliated with as Canisius, Dewaville, and Buff State.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's because the UB is so new with it, or maybe they're gonna just do their own thing, but um, who knows? But yeah, so Buffalo State is listed there, but
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, so I was wrong. It wasn't out of Buffalo Scholastic, but I knew I saw them somewhere.
mhm. I wonder, I know there's some high schools rowing out of Buffalo Scholastic. I don't know if there's any
Mhm.
other colleges. We'll just check
Well,
it out.
yeah, I did look at their website. It didn't look like there was any colleges listed. But I think the big difference there is that that's where Canisius High School ended up, and Canisius College is at Westside still. But
Okay.
St. Joe's is at Westside still. Narden, that's where you coached.
Mhm.
City Honors, Gow, Nichols, Mount St. Mary. Yeah, so they and then they have the juniors team. So that's where like a bunch of different people get together
Yeah, because
from different schools.
they run their summer program. So they like do a juniors program during the summer,
Hmm.
like a U19 and like a
Hmm.
U23 program.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they're pretty serious. That summer program is
Hmm.
like I believe like tryout and like you have to be asked
Yeah.
to join the team and like got a little life to it. So I think that one kind of got that competitive edge to it. I think we don't really have anything like West Side here in Rochester. Like we kind of have some programs that are semi sort of doing something like that. Like
Mhm.
so I know that the Pittsford crew runs a summer program
Mhm.
and so they run like a U17, U19 kind
Mhm.
of thing. They don't do U23. So we have another program over at Genesee Rowing Club, which is across the river from where my boat is at Genesee Waterways. And they have a team called Flower City.
Hmm.
And Flower City's like essentially a U23, but it's like a competitive masters team. Like they wake up at 5 in the morning and practice like five or
Okay.
6 days a week. Like they're serious.
Yeah.
And I think, but it mostly attracts a U23 crowd. So
Like
it's
a college
like a
summer,
college, like
like
so
during the
like
summer break. Hmm.
yeah, so like, you're home in Rochester, you're a rower for a college, you want to stay fit, you're going to do Flower City. But we don't have a like a team like West Side that's like kind of leading up like a U17, U19, U23 and running like a summer program with the goal of I would assume Henley.
Hmm.
Um, potentially sending some boats out to like some of the trials and stuff like that, but I don't know
Hmm.
how serious and deep into it they've been. But I mean that might be something fun to figure out too. I mean, do you
Hmm.
guys is there a team out there who kind of leads the charge as far as running summer programming, or does everybody kind of do a little something in your area?
Yeah. So this area is so interesting. So like when I was out in Buffalo for years, and I came back kind of, you know, as an adult, and then it was like asking my coach, my former coach, how come we don't join forces with the other teams, at least on our river and everything. And I remember him saying that the egos on the river were too big to ever work together.
Mhm.
And a couple years ago, when the Burn Hills coach wanted, and it was out of survival need that um, the teams got so small after COVID,
Mhm.
and to the point where, it was like impossible to boat lineups. It was so small that the idea of combining Shen and Burnt Hills and then inviting like any other rowers locally, I think they started in the summer. So that was more of when I was part of it as a master's rower. I was a little more involved on that end
Mhm.
in for Burnt Hills. My kids were not involved in rowing yet, so I was kind of coming at it from the Burnt Hills end, and I was so excited about it. I mean, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I think I said something to Andy. I was like, "It's kind of like." You have parents that had a kid
Mhm.
that they never got married, that they
Mhm.
were just co-parenting their whole lives,
Yeah.
living two separate lives.
Hmm.
And then one day they realize, you know what? We have a lot in common and we actually can work really well together as a unit. It was such a sappy way of looking at it. And he was like, yeah, okay. It's like, I can see that. But I was so excited because that was what I always envisioned. Like, why not? Especially in the summer season,
Oh yeah.
I mean, it just makes sense. You can't compete at the level of Henley Canadian Henley with such small teams. Even like Burn Hills always did. I mean, when I was on the team and just years after when Chris was coaching, we always took boats out to Henley, but with the expectation that nobody's making it out of heats. Like it's just not gonna happen. I mean, maybe once in a while you'd have a boat that would make it to semifinals or whatever, but
Um,
that wasn't the expectation. The expectation was you go out there, it's tradition, it's a great trip, kids have fun. And then we have a lot of teams that are kind of at that size. They're high school based teams. So
mhm.
scholastic teams
No.
that that roast in the same bubble that they're in for all of the seasons, I guess including winter too.
Mhm.
Um, Albany has their rowing center, so that kind of works. I think maybe in the summer they bring in like the Shaker rowers. I'm pretty sure maybe Shaker doesn't row in the summer. They probably row under Albany. Um, but then you've got the Mammoth Saratoga.
Yeah.
Just like nobody's, it's just in a league of its own.
Mhm.
And then they've got their two, right? They've got, I think they never row under Saratoga. I think for a while there they were trying to work to row scholastically for Saratoga in the spring. And then I think it was Chris Chase that said something like it's just not worth it. It's just too much of a hassle to row under the school.
Yeah.
And they didn't need them, right? That
Mhm.
like to the point, Burn Hill still rose scholastically and is that varsity status,
Yeah.
but they get something out of it because it's a small enough team that it helps fund their coaching, um, gives them some support, gives them some busing for the spring season at least.
Mhm.
But they have more rules to follow, more training they have to do. And they absolutely cannot coach other kids from other schools during that scholastic team. So that, limits them to some extent, where Shen has just always been considered a club team. We're not under, Shen's been really good about embracing us and like helping recruit and, giving us space on campus to do things. But yeah, we're not considered a varsity sport. So I know it's a huge tangent, but um, we tried it for a while. I think now they're kind of going their separate ways as the teams get bigger. Um, and so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, which is having a rower on the team who really got to know some of those other rowers at the Burn Hills team. There's some sadness there, it's
Um,
like a closed chapter. But, you move forward to see what happens next. And I still think it's a great idea. Like someday, I think it's just always a logistical problem. Like
yeah.
you're going to take in dues. Where do the dues go? What team gets to use them and decide how much to pay the coaches? You got to standardize all the rates. You got to make sure this parent that's upset but is being coached by a coach that's usually from another team. Like, how do you work that all out when you have different policies and different personalities and everything? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think
Hmm.
a lot of that is what ends up keeping these teams so compartmentalized. It's
Yeah.
just, like you said, the scholastic versus club and the rules and, are you getting school support? Is there a benefit to being a scholastic team versus not? And when you are, then you've got to follow all these rules. You got to do the concussion protocols with people. You got to make sure that they're all cleared by the nurse at the school. Like you have to go through all of those types of things that, can benefit or can actually kind of add to the job of what the coach needs to do. So
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. It's tough, but the kid, I mean, but in the sense of the rowing community, it's nice when the kids get to row with different people and like
Yeah.
when the community gets to come together at one point
Hmm.
during the season instead of being in another boat sitting at the start line with them. You're in the same boat and you get to, you know, put those powerhouses of kids together because there's always a sprinkling on each team and then
Yeah.
for the summer to be this moment where the three really strong kids from one class one team and the three really strong from another and a couple other, and you get that great coxswain, and then you're making a boat that's really competitive. We'll have a good time at Henley, and we'll row more than one day.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that I think you see so much positivity in like when those teams go scholastic during the spring. It was so fun to watch them root each other on and like,
Aw.
they're like, those are my teammates, but right now we're competitors, but in
Mhm.
a very friendly, competitive way.
Yeah,
Whereas I just kind of like dread or worry that we're going to lose some of that as,
if
if
they
we're
don't know each
not,
other.
but
Yeah.
hopefully not. And I hope there's opportunities to still work really well with all of the teams. And the other thing that does factor in is that, usually you get coaches that maybe have coached somewhere and then they move to coach another team and there's still like some
Mhm.
interesting dynamics there. But yeah, I think, hopefully, especially the adults, we can kind of move on and, just look forward and try and keep things positive and in a positive environment for the kids, because the kids, they have fun, right? That's
Yeah.
that's what's important. Yeah. And then teaching those valuable skills and like good sportsmanship.
Very
Yeah.
true. Very
Hmm.
true. Well, I think we should probably wrap up, but
Yeah.
what are our goals? What are we working on going
Ooh.
forward? We mentioned so many things today. I'm
So
like,
much. Well, it's spring racing season. At least, like college has kind of started. They've been rowing for a few weeks, so it's been fun to watch some of those results come in. High school really is just starting. Like, so we've got this weekend, we're going to meet in
Saratoga
two different
Invitational, right?
Saratoga Invitational, and we just found out that the mods are having their scrimmage. So they're not participating in the invitational as originally thought. So
Oh,
now it'll be like two parents in two different locations kind of thing. But it is what it is. Should be fun. Um, and yeah, so we'll see how that goes. I know a lot of it depends on that first race to see, how the boats go. They're going to probably put up a lot of different lineups, see what works
mhm.
before they decide what's the state's lineups are.
Yeah.
And then after, so I think there's a weekend off in between, but then it's just go, go, go every weekend until pretty much the end of May, June, if boats make it to the other final, like the nationals and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think the weekend in between, because it's Saratoga Invitational, I think West Side has the John Bennett, right?
Hmm.
We talked
Yeah,
about
we
this
looked that
before.
up
So
last
yeah,
time.
Saratoga Invitational, John Bennett, and then
Yeah,
states.
yeah.
Does Syracuse still do something that weekend in between
So I think there
before?
is a Chargers race,
Mhm.
and I think at least with Burnt Hills, and I don't know about Shen, but Burnt Hills, back when Chris was coaching, would always do the Chargers race. I don't know if it's called the Chargers Invitational. Um, but it's the same weekend as Pittsburgh. No, sorry, Stotesbury.
Stokesbury. Yeah, yeah. So that was
And
the option. Stokesbury or Chargers. Yeah.
and there's such a good argument for both, right?
Hmm.
Like, Stotesbury, you can only race once,
Hmm.
and it's a high cost, you
Hmm.
know, is it worth it?
They going down there. Yeah.
You have to get down there Thursday night.
Hmm.
So, you really want the kids to be down there like to rig on Thursday. So you're taking Thursday off,
Hmm.
you're down there racing on Friday, and you're racing on Saturday.
Hmm.
So it's a lot of stuff going on for one race for
Work.
each kid.
Yeah.
So,
That'll
and
work.
then there's the Chargers is the same weekend, and it's a much more low key race. So, yeah.
And there's
Same
the
weekend though.
potential, yeah, and then there's the potential of doing more than one boat, kind of get,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
glad I
But
don't have to make those decisions anymore.
we will be at Stotesbury. I know that. And then Pittsford,
Hmm.
um, is after that, I think, right? I don't know. Pittsford,
Pittsburgh,
I'm
we
pretty
will
sure.
have to do like a podcast from Pittsburgh. We have to figure that out so that we can sit there,
Yeah.
maybe at the brewery, and like we can just
Yeah.
bring people and have and talk to them and just be recording it and just kind of do that. We might do a different version of it, like and we can watch the races or something. We'll figure something out.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure out
Yeah.
when you're available and have a
Hmm.
little bit of time on. Will you be there just for Sunday, or will you be there Saturday and Sunday?
I think we were there for both last year.
Both. Okay.
So I don't know,
Because I
but
know, because I know if you're going to, because you guys wrote Scholastic, right? We just kind of went over that, right? So that
yeah.
means that Scholastic Nationals is that same weekend, correct?
Right. So,
So,
yeah, it'll
okay.
depend. Like
So
I
yeah,
don't
it'll
want
be
to
the
guess
depends on.
either way, but that's where everybody who doesn't make Scholastic Nationals goes
Yeah.
to Pittsford so that there's, a good race for whoever that weekend. Everybody has a chance. So,
Yeah, and that's a fun
yeah.
location. I mean, it's so
Yeah.
close to that you can watch the boats as they cross the finish line. It's just
Hmm.
really a fun space to kind of and we'll keep our fingers crossed for really beautiful weather so that
Yeah.
it'll be nice to kind of sit out there and
Hmm.
there's like the food places to eat and the excitement of the races and stuff like that. So that'll be really, really fun. We'll figure out when we can hook up for an hour or two and we'll set up
Hmm.
our
Yeah.
little stand and we'll talk to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be cool. It'll be cool.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, but that'll be
It'll be
awesome.
good.
Yes.
Cool.
Well, have
All
a
right,
great rest
Adrian.
of the week.
Yeah,
And
you
thank you,
too.
everybody who's listening. And if you're
Hmm.
interested in this conversation in the way that you want to be a part of it and want to come on the podcast, shoot us an email. Our emails are in the show notes. Or reach out to us on our DMs and Facebook or on Instagram. YouTube, you can comment also, or comment
Mhm.
on the actual um, podcast wherever you're watching. So,
That's right.
or
I will
listening.
have to post something about being on YouTube now. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I'll have to take a look at that. Is it just the audio that's showing up and not the video? I don't know what setting I have it on. So I'll correct that if I can, so that you can
Okay,
see the video portion of it.
cool. All right,
All
Adrian,
right.
take care.
Take care. Have a great rest of the week. All
Yeah,
right.
you too.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.